Yo, how's it going everybody? It's MacklinGaming, and this is my early impressions video of Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, if you see my previous videos pop up on your YouTube channel and you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate that. It's quick, it's easy, and it's free, and it would make my day. So, without further ado, let's get into my early impressions of Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, I've been playing this game I played it last night a little bit and then all morning before making this video. So I'm probably about 5 to 6 hours into the game. I made it to the capital city and I've done a bunch of little side quests as well. So I'm going to tell you the positives and some negatives of what I've experienced so far. The game starts out with the story. It's almost exactly like the story from Dragon's Dogma 1. I don't want to give spoilers, but it's almost like a carbon copy, which is interesting because it doesn't feel as much like a sequel. It almost feels like a remake. And really, it doesn't matter that much because the story isn't like the strong point of this game. It's the open world exploration and combat and all that stuff I'll get to in a bit. But the story starts you out and puts you on your path. You can customize your character like to insane detail. I tried to make myself as my main character, and I think it came out okay. Kind of looks like me, you know, but you can edit your posture, like how you walk. You can edit tattoos, facial features, body types, all this stuff. So it's pretty fun. And then they throw you out into the game. You fight like a big introductory boss, and they teach you how to use some of the main game mechanics, which are pretty fun, like being able to climb enemies. It's almost like Shadow of the Colossus fused with an RPG like The Witcher or Skyrim, but you can just climb huge enemies. I think that's really cool. They've done that, I know, in the first game, but here it is in like a modern title with better graphics and all that stuff. So the climbing is really cool. You can also just like grab smaller enemies. You can grab like goblins and throw them off a cliff. You can throw them at each other. You can grab rocks or explosive barrels like in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. You grab those like red barrels and you can throw them at enemies. So the grabbing and throwing mechanic is really cool to this game, really unique, I think. And another important aspect to the gameplay are the companions you get, which they call pawns in this game. And you can customize your main pawn. You can essentially create another character to accompany you as your pawn, and you can also take other people's pawns from other players around the world that have played Dragon's Dogma 2, and they've created their own pawns, and then they get put into this like hub world where you can hire other people's pawns to fight alongside you. So you can have up to 3 companions, your main pawn who's always with you and levels up with you, and 2 other people's pawns, 2 other players' pawns, which they don't level up as you play. So they're at a fixed level. And if you start to out level them, you know, you can always go back to the hub world and kind of release them and get higher level pawns. So it kind of encourages you to change your pawns and change the different play styles because each pawn has its own class, or in this game they call it vocation. So I'll get to the vocations now because your main character gets to choose them as well. And you get, essentially it's like RPG classes. You get to choose between fighter, strider, I think, archer, and mage. And these are all, you know, some of those are like rogues with bow and arrow. There's also like a dual wield dagger class. And obviously you have your magic class, the mage. And I chose fighter because I actually started out as a mage. And I just didn't like how it controlled, like in combat. It was really basic, and the animations weren't that cool or anything when you're just casting your spells out of your staff. So what I did was I changed my class and my vocation like as soon as I could, which is awesome that you can start out picking a class and then you can change it early on in the game and like as many times throughout the game as you want. You don't have to, you're not stuck as a mage for the whole game. Or a fighter, you know, if you want to change it, you really don't have to like delete your save and start over because that's like a real pain in the ass in this game. I'm telling you, I'll talk about it later in the negatives part of this video, but the save game is just so weird. Anyway, you've got these vocations, you got your class, you know, you want to pick some pawns that complement your style. So like if you're a fighter vocation, you want to pick a mage, and then maybe grab a couple of like archers, or an archer and another fighter. So then I'm setting out with my 3 companions, and we're wandering around in the forests and stuff, and eventually you'll come across a bunch of goblins, you'll fight some wolves, and then like there's a huge ogre early on in the game that you fight, and it was awesome to be able to climb on this ogre and like stab it in the back, stab it in the front, and it's like throwing us around, stomping on the ground. And so I'm up on its back, I'm stabbing it, I'm trying to take it down, and the big enemies have multiple health bars. It's like 1 health bar and then a little dot underneath, or like 2 dots. And when you clear the whole health bar, that dot grays out and then the health bar refills. You got to continue fighting it, and it creates some epic battles. A lot of things that can happen are really unscripted too. Like this troll fell partially down a cliff to where I was standing up at like its eye level, and so I was able to run and jump onto it from the top, and I'm already stabbing it like right in the neck and the back, instead of having to just jump on its leg when you're on level ground with it. So it's really exciting combat. Anything can happen. Like there's so much freedom in the combat and the exploration that I really enjoy. As night falls in this game, it's really awesome because it gets super dark and you can't see like in front of you very far. You've got a little lantern that you can turn on. But I love when RPGs, or just any game really, has like a really good dark night sequence. Like some games, nighttime is just so bright you can barely even tell that it's night, you know? But the way they make the nights really dark and really spooky, and they've got enemies like lurking in the forest, it makes for an awesome open world where you really don't need to follow the main quest that much. You just kind of wander off and fight enemies, discover things. Like there's campsites where you can rest with your companions and you can heal up. You can also cook some really good looking food. Like when they do this little cutscene as you're grilling up some meat, it's like almost photorealistic looking. It's really funny, but the cooking is really good and beneficial. You can like craft different items and meals. There's a lot going on in the inventory, and a lot of like inventory management you have to do. So I think those are a lot of positives about the game. It's just a fun open world. You can run around and do anything you want, and anything will happen. Like you'll have a different playthrough and a different experience with an enemy than, you know, your friend might have or other players. So it's a very unique RPG so far. Now, with all the positive stuff that I've talked about, there are some negatives here. You know, the game launched in not a great state performance-wise. I'm playing on PC, and I'm managing to hit 40 frames on high graphics at 1440p. I have a 120 hertz monitor, so 40 FPS actually fits pretty nicely, except for the fact that the game drops frames like no matter what. I mean, there's people out there I hear with like 4090 graphics cards, beefy PCs, way better than mine, and the game's like tanking its frame rate in certain areas. And that's because a lot of the NPCs in the game are like very CPU heavy, apparently. Even the developers have come out and explained this, that the NPCs in the game are like tanking the frame rate. They have so many like programmable actions that they can do, that especially you see it when you get into the capital city, or like any village really. But when you're in the city, man, I have some footage of my gameplay. It was just tanking the frame rate. It was all over the place. When I'm out in the forest, in the open world, I'm holding 40 FPS pretty nicely. And then I just go in there and it dive bombs, and it's like 30, 32, 27, back up to 40, you know, 30. So it's jumping all around the place. I think they're going to have a patch. The developers already said they're going to try to work on this and fix the frame rate in the CPU heavy NPCs around the world. So, you know, it's just infancy stages of this game. It's going to get patched. I think it's going to improve. But right now it's tough to be in like any of the crowded city areas in this game. And another huge negative with this game is the way that you save, and the fact that this game only allows you to have one save file. And then if you don't really like your character and you want to start over, I had this problem. I had to look for a way to start a new game, and you can't start a new game. You can only manually delete your save files. So I had to like dig through my PC, and then I realized you can actually customize your character after you've picked it out. Like I said earlier, you can change your character. So I like stopped with the headache of trying to delete my manual saves, and I just kept going, and I later amended my character a little bit. But there's just the fact that even when you're playing through the game, you only have one save, and then you can save at an inn. There's kind of like a backup save there, and then you get very infrequent auto saves. So like if you're just wandering around and all of a sudden an ogre like pops out and starts demolishing your team and you die, and you're like, oh man, I forgot when the last time I saved was, like, you're gonna lose a lot of progress there. And you really have to save often. I very much recommend that you just continue to save scum. Save, manual save, like every 5 minutes. Every time you finish a battle, definitely drop a save down, because you never know if you're going to lose progress or the game might crash. So you can't really have multiple save slots. And that's why definitely save as often as possible. But that's probably the only negatives I can think of so far. The performance of the game, which I hope will improve, and the one save debacle that they've created. Again, the developers have spoken about these things, and they said they're going to try and fix them. So look for that in future updates. But that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys think about Dragon's Dogma 2. Have you picked it up yet? If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.